Hello and welcome to tonight's show.
And hello and welcome to episode 243 of On the Bench, the podcast for scale modelers by scale modelers, all about scale models. This episode is being presented by Tony Drake and Stuart Rolfe from Black Hat Scale Models. You too can help support the show just like these fine gentlemen. Simply go to www.patreon.com/onthebench and pledge any amount from as little as $1 per week. Your support of the show helps with our hosting and production costs and are greatly appreciated. And don't forget, every financial Patreon supporter gets an OTB sticker and goes into the Patreon Wheel of Fortune. We're proud to be sponsored by Scott from the Scale Model Supply, so let's have a word from Scott.
Are you looking for top quality paints for your next project? Then look no further than the Scale Modeler Supply. Hi, I'm Scott, and as a passionate modeler myself, I've spent years creating the SMS product range, designing them specifically with a scale modeler in mind. We've worked extensively to develop our acrylic lacquer paint range to not only be airbrush ready straight out of the bottle, but also to be very easy to use so that anyone of any skill level can create professional results with minimal effort. Just give the bottle a good shake, pour into your airbrush and spray at 15 psi. So dive into your next project with confidence, knowing that you're backed by one of the finest hobby paints on the market. Head over to our website scalemodeler.com.au to check out our full range and to find your closest retailer.
And hello and welcome to the show. And in the studio, I've got Ian.
G'day Dave, g'day Julian, g'day everyone else.
And of course, Julian.
Hello.
How are we all?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, not bad for a Saturday morning.
This is actually being pre-recorded a week before it dropped, so it's actually Saturday, 25th of July.
So,
Just finished.
to the world of tomorrow.
Yeah, just finished watching the launch of Starship 13 earlier on, which went swimmingly well.
Well, how's that Chinese launch the other day? Got struck by lightning.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. And as with all the launches, it's usually sort of playing ping pong via Messenger with Kentucky Dave, just talking about watching it together, separate parts of the world, which was fun.
That's pretty cool. And
this episode will actually drop just as I'm finished visiting Rob Riv. And then on my way, I'll be on my way to Dave Knight's place. So,
cool.
Kind of feels weird talking about things that's going to happen in the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dave the Seer.
Yes. yes. So, really excited about the trip. We're looking forward to catching up with Rob. That should be a lot of fun. We're going out for dinner and then have breakfast. And I imagine that we'll probably set up a little tent in his backyard, and that Rob and I will sort of camp out overnight in the tent. I can't see how his lovely wife Debbie will let us both sleep under the same roof inside the house. We'll be making too much noise, so we're probably going to camp in his backyard, and then down to Chateau de Nice.
Yep.
With my lovely suite down there and the pool that's beckoning to me, and got a whole heap of stuff all programmed. Going to be going out looking day tripping and going to various places, so very excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, Dave.
And then catching up, of course, with Mike and all travelling up to Nats at Fort Wayne. And thanks to everybody who's already reached out and promised me beer and models and all sorts of stuff, and a couple of things with Julian chucked in there as well.
Really?
Yeah. People always talk about you for some reason. I don't know why. It's not your show.
Well, so, if it's not my show, then what am I doing here?
Yeah. Well, Ian and I ask that question every second Saturday.
Oh,
No, we know why Julian's here.
This is our 9th anniversary, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's been going for 9 years now.
Jeez.
So
It's all right, isn't it?
pretty special. So next year will be a big one, our 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
To plan something for that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll think. I've got a year to think about how we're going to do that one, but that's a pretty big milestone, I want to say.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, huge milestone, mate. Yeah, yeah. Totally agree.
So, what's been happening since we last spoke? We'll start with you, Ian.
Same as always, mate. Unfortunately, yeah, I just don't get anything done. My life's just too busy.
All right, we'll just skip
me,
to Julian then.
Skip me, go to Julian.
Not too much. I mean, I haven't had much time to tinker with. I did a bit of painting last weekend.
Yeah,
Cool.
But other than that, not too much. I put some silver paint down. Yeah, it's okay, I suppose.
I suppose painting at the moment for you would be a real hassle considering the time
it,
of year it is.
Yeah, I mean, it is a hassle. I mean, it's just because you want to go outside and paint, and then there's a whole bunch of
paint
obstacles.
Paint inside like I do.
I'm not going to do that.
Why not?
No, I'm not going to do that.
You haven't got your own dedicated
Put it this way, right? On the odd occasion, I will sometimes use some of the diluted lacquer thinner that Tamiya sells to strip chrome off parts.
Yeah.
And that will stink out the whole freaking room, right?
But
I don't need that.
But you put a painting
I don't.
in there.
How much more if I friggin' aerosol it? No. The window doesn't open like yours. Mine's got one of those ones that sort of hinge at the top and open out that way.
Oh, that's easy fixed.
Hammer.
No, it is.
You just use a hammer.
No.
Use a hammer and buy a bit of plywood.
No, you can. So we're
and it's at the opposite corner of the room from where my desk and everything is. So
Well,
it's never going to work. Like, it's never going to work. Trust me. I've rethought this and changed things up just for my computer as much as I have already. It's not going to happen.
All right. Have you got your own computer room at home, or it's in your bedroom?
Yeah, it's in my bedroom.
Okay.
That's just how it is. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, Dave.
But you've got a spare bedroom.
Look,
in the house?
I don't have like 50 years of work history under my belt to buy my own home, Dave.
But
right? If I had my own house, trust me, it would be the most retrofitted, customized thing, right?
Yeah.
There would be indoor railway tracks that so that my chair would be on wheels and it would just carry me through the whole place.
Very good. Well, unlike you guys, I've actually done some purchases this week.
Oh, have you?
Really?
Well, when I say purchase, some purchases that I made ages ago have arrived. So, if you recall, I'm building the Tamiya P38 F/G model, and I bought some aftermarket decals that were for the wrong model, for the H model.
Yep.
So, I jumped on the Edward page, and I've got some correct decals for the model I'm doing. So they arrived.
So which one are you doing?
Well, there's one that flew out of Papua New Guinea.
What has it got? What nose art does it have?
It's got like a skull with a top hat on it.
That's such a shame because I've got that exact kit with the exact same decal scheme.
Ah, do you
and
really?
That was the one I was planning on doing.
And this has got shark teeth on the engine nacelles as well.
Yep.
But there's another one, interestingly, that flew out of Port Moresby, and the top of the aircraft is overall white. White. And the underneath is your normal...
OD? Neutral grey.
Neutral grey. And with some parts of the engine nacelle is a bit of OD as well. White. Yeah, I know. And I'm just trying to figure out why would they have painted it white. So I'd like to. I'm really.
I would look into that.
I'm super tempted to actually
do that one. Yeah,
do that one. But I've got.
You'll regret that one, I think.
No, I don't know. But is it actually white or was it like a sandy colour?
It's actually white. Yeah.
Huh.
Don't know.
Never ever seen that one.
And I've got I think, Ian, you had a look at it last time I was here. The 13th Air Force, I think, flew out of Port Moresby.
Yep.
And there was a famous raid that they did where they flew over the Papua New Guinea Ranges.
Yeah, Owen Stanley, yeah.
And when they came back, all the clouds had come in and blocked their escape route. It's called Black Thursday or something like that.
Black Sunday. Or something like one of them, yeah.
And they lost a whole heap of aircraft.
Through the monsoon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
because the latest book for that came out that you and I have a
Yes,
copy.
yes. Mike Clarenbold
Yeah.
wrote it. Yeah. He's a fantastic author,
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
he? God.
That's why I got a ton of his books, mate.
Yeah.
They're
Remember
freaking
we
awesome.
interviewed him that time? I'd
Yeah.
love to get him back on the show.
Yeah, we
he's
should.
just so knowledgeable
Font
about,
of knowledge.
about the air war in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
He's just an absolute walking encyclopedia.
Well, he is lucky that he actually has access to the archives in Japan, so he can get all that information too.
Yeah, so he gets it from both sides. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh, you remember how I did tell you that I bought those books?
Yes,
I did forget to bring them in because I only just
sure.
got them yesterday. But
Yep.
I may as well tell you about them. So basically, I bought these. I saw it advertised on Instagram, and I ended up buying it. There's 2 books, and they're little tiny booklets, and basically they're from a guy who in Japan, and I think it was I can't remember what time period it was, but basically he something along the lines of he was studying judo and he didn't like it, so he punched his instructor, and then and then and then he went off and became a painter, and then he got so good at it that the Japanese government sent him on a trip to Europe to study it, and
Oh, they study
And-
European
and then-
art.
Oh, you remember you telling us
Yeah,
about this?
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, I told you, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't mention it on the podcast.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
yeah. And then he made these books that sort of were identified certain colors because he was very obsessed with color, and he would take lots of little clippings and things like that, and he would pair them up into matches and create all these presets that sort of I don't know, represented the era, I suppose.
Yep.
And he did two of these, and then they were almost sort of lost media for a time, and then the company got hold of them and started reprinting them. And they're very cool, and not all of them are sets that I would use, but there's a lot of stuff that I could use for race car livery type stuff.
Oh, of course.
So, I mean, I'm not a
Everything's going to come back to cars, doesn't it?
Yes, of course.
Oh, so depressing.
Nothing
If you
depressing.
say so. I mean, I'm not I'm not a member of the Built Sideways podcast, so I don't talk color theory all the time, And I can't. You know what? I almost don't want to learn it because I feel like it will take away some of the romance. It's kind of like to me. It's kind of like you don't want to learn a certain foreign language because if you learn that language, then you're not sort of just appreciating the way it sounds anymore. You're actually just understanding it as data, as words, and then you won't appreciate how it sounds in a song or in a film.
Yeah, I get that. I understand.
A friend of mine, for example, he used to be a big fan of Rammstein.
Yep.
And then
My stepson's like Rammstein. I can't stand it.
I don't mind this.
Well,
Well,
and
got some pretty cool songs out there.
well, he's since moved to Germany and had to learn German. And now that he knows German, he has no interest in Rammstein.
Oh, really?
yeah.
I thought it'd help with your love of the band.
No, because now it doesn't sound, sort of like
Exotic,
brutal German metal anymore.
Yeah.
It just sounds like
Normal metal.
it just sounds like guys talking slowly.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of like what I don't really want to learn. What do you call it? Color theory too much. I want to be able to just go, oh, that's a nice color.
You wanna know enough.
You want to keep it as a mystery.
Yeah, I do. I want to keep it as a mystery.
You want to
for
know
sure.
enough so that you can actually plot something out and do it.
No, I don't. I don't want to
Don't
do
you?
that. No, I just want to be able to go, oh, that's a nice color combination. I might yoink that and
okay,
then put
yeah.
that on something.
Yeah, I get you.
That's why having a nice little booklet that's filled
That's right.
with them is my idea of.
Well, can you bring the book next time you come? Because I want to have a look at it.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, okay. I'll bring the books.
All right.
Yeah. Cool.
And they weren't expensive either, They were like, I think it was like $75 for both of them.
That's pretty good.
It depends what's in it. If it's like 6 pages, that's expensive.
No. No, it's not 6 pages.
Must be printed on very good paper.
6 pages. How thick are they? It was like 3 mil thick.
Pamphlet. Spent $75 on a pamphlet.
Yeah, it's like little thin slabs of marble, chiseled out of marble, Roman style. Yeah. Do you remember Asterix?
Yes.
Yes.
How like all the note takers would chisel everything out of slabs of
That
marble?
was the best cartoon book series.
Oh,
It
Asterix
really
was. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
I used to love.
I think I probably still got a couple of copies of the books at home somewhere.
I don't think I have, but yeah.
Asterix, Obelix.
Yeah, and the poor Romans
Dogmatics.
always getting thumped.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've read a lot of those as a kid, along with Tintin.
Tintin never grabbed me.
No, Tintin was pretty cool.
Nah.
I like Tintin.
I liked how it sort of
Even though Hirsch was a Nazi collaborator.
well, I mean, there was a lot of affiliations in those days.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Henry Ford and such.
Well, we won't mention
Henry
Ford.
Yeah, but I mean,
we know he's
what I mean is, like, when you read Tintin, I liked it because it was like a representation of the era.
Yes.
So it was all. It wasn't. Was it 1930s? Was it?
Yeah, late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, and it really does come across that way.
Yeah.
Back when people who went to Africa actually wore the safari hats and things like that. Fez hats were a thing. Remember when when old movies gave you the idea that there were whole groups of people out there wearing Fez hats?
Nothing but Fez hats.
It's like never seen a person wearing a Fez hat in my life.
Not
even videos.
I know of a guy who's got one.
I want to buy one and I want to wear it. And Michelle looked at me and with that look that you can see, nah.
and bowler hats.
I've got a bowler hat.
Really?
Yeah. You would have a bowler hat. She should have given you the look for that one as well.
No, that's okay. And I got a top hat as well.
You've got a top hat.
Yeah.
That makes sense, actually. I can see you wearing a top hat.
It was funny during
and a waistcoat.
during
and a cane.
During lockdowns when we had work meetings,
Do you have a monocle as well?
No, I was buying different hats. So each different meeting, I'd have a different hat on. For me, I had a propeller hat, and I had a top hat, and I had the bowler, and all sorts of real weird caps I used to buy and wear.
Okay.
So just to make it interesting and tune it up a bit.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, it's good. Good fun.
Yeah, but I just like the Tintin, sort of view of things.
Well, funnily enough, I've
quicksand and submarines and
I've actually got some 72nd scale decal schemes to do aircraft from the Tintin.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I did years and years ago. I did a BF 109F from one of the books.
Oh yeah, I think
actually had
that would be the one where the pilot Poiter strafes them while they're out at sea.
No, he was flying mosquitoes.
He was flying a mosquito in that? Oh, my memory of it is pretty
this
bad.
is the one. I think it's from the one about the scepter that went missing. And the Snowy, the dog, finds it, and as he's going back, he spots his big bone. He has his big conflict in his mind. Am I going to take the bone or the scepter? But was it Badurian, I think? I can't remember what the nationality. But basically,
they had
side emblem was like a black circle with like an upside down black peace symbol or something on it.
Well, there was a lot of fictional countries in that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because
there was one that sort of looked like Switzerland or something. I remember there was that one.
Yeah, so I still got decals somewhere to do de Havilland Mosquito that was flown by the Thompson twins.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I don't remember a mosquito being in it.
No, not mosquito. Sorry, I call it tiger moth. Sorry,
tiger moth.
Yeah,
that seems like that kind of era.
Oh yeah, definitely
thing.
Yeah.
That and seaplanes and
yes.
Yeah, I wonder why no one built a model, sells a model kit of the shark submarine.
Yeah, because that was a cool looking sub, wasn't it?
Yeah, very iconic.
Yeah. Actually, it wouldn't surprise me. I reckon you'd be able to get 3D printed.
Yeah, 3D printed.
You know what?
Yep.
Oh yeah, for sure 3D printed. But I mean, like, you would want it to be easy enough that you could just paint it black and then throw on some decals for the mouth and eyes and things.
You paint them on.
I mean, if you wanted to do it, you could do it no matter what.
Yeah,
but
you probably scratch build it.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, like, I'm surprised there's no model kit, because it seems like the kind of thing Bandai might sell alongside all their Studio Ghibli stuff, all their other sort of merchandise things. You know how they sell the ships from One Piece. And
another iconic vehicle from that series is the rocket.
Yes, the rocket,
the red and white checkered rocket. When they go to the moon,
it's such a almost Jetsons-like rocket, isn't it? Well,
it reminds me of slightly of was it Thunderbird 3?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's got the nacelles on the wings, the 3 nacelles.
Yeah, it's got no thought. It's all sort of this is what a rocket should look like in the future, with no real regard to how you would get things in or out of that thing.
Well, it's actually an official Tintin.com where you can actually buy models.
Well, you can buy toys.
Well, toy versions of the the shark submarine. There it is there with Tintin and Snowy the dog.
Is that what the submarine looked like? I
think it did. It's pretty darn close.
Well,
it's pretty cool. Oh. There you go. Well, something else I can waste my time on this afternoon.
Looking at Tintin stuff.
Yeah. It is pretty close to the... Yeah, I didn't realise it was that, shark looking. I thought it looked more like a submarine that just happened to be painted up like a shark.
Shark with a cockpit on the...
I remember the cockpit canopy, yeah, but I didn't realise it had all the little fins and things like a shark does. All the dorsal fins and things. Because that wouldn't really help in the water, would it? And not unless you're a shark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, that's enough of Tintin. Wasn't a big fan.
Well, I was.
No.
Well, see, I wouldn't mind more fictional works being converted into models, to be honest.
I think that if you look hard enough, you'll find...
Oh, speaking of which, do you know Emerson Tung? He's like a illustrator, and he does all these cool sort of World War II tanks imagined as mechs.
Emerson Tom, did you say?
Tung.
Go on.
Anyway, he does a lot of this sort of art that sort of is very World War II inspired mechs, right? And turns out I don't know if it's necessarily his initiative, but a lot of his some of his works have been
Emerson Tung, Tung, yeah.
Yeah, well, it depends on how you want to pronounce it. But in any case, he's known for the Tankhead series of or I don't know if it's a series of books, but it's definitely a book. But he does a lot of these sort of World War II inspired mecha.
Yep.
And you'll like that one down the bottom there, Ian. The one if you go back one.
Right.
The main picture at the bottom.
Oh God.
Yeah, scroll down, and then see there's the arrow on the left.
Yes.
Yep, click that.
Yeah. There's the one that looks like Godzilla.
Hey, what?
Keep going until you find it. You'll see it.
Keep going.
There you go.
Panzer Blisch aus E.
Yeah. I mean, it's
very Godzilla inspired, isn't it?
I mean, it's really good illustrations, and he's actually there's been some model kits that have been released that are his work. Oh. So there's hope yet that other sort of fictional works can, because there's not even any real, as far as I know, there's no actual TV series or anything that has been based on his work. But it's really cool.
It is cool.
Mechanical design type looking stuff, I think that would translate really well into a model kit. So it's good to see that it has been. So one of the ones that was released is a sort of tank mecha thing that looks like a crab. It's got 6 legs and a big main gun sticking out of its head and.
They got a thing called Toilet Bots. 1/12 scale action figures designed by Emerson Tung, manufactured by Toy Nutch. It's robots that look like
toilets,
urines and
urinals,
bowls and.
That is
that's really bizarre, but looks fun and funky.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back and explore that a bit more. There's my afternoon gone. We're moving on.
I've been getting into lately the checking out the artwork of Peter Elson.
Yes.
Because some of the stuff he does, you think, oh, geez, you'd love to scratch build some of these spacecraft. They're just amazing.
You would.
Him, Chris Foss, Like one of my all-time favourite, I can't remember which one did it. It was a piece called the Stellar Cow, and it's this blue spaceship, and the head looks like a cow.
Oh yeah. I know the one you're talking about.
I always wanted to scratch build that because I just reckon it's just such an iconic sci-fi image.
That's very Isaac Asimov, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. I think I've got it in one of my Terran Trade Authority books. You should try finding those books nowadays for under $500.
Yeah.
I've only got one copy, but I think it was about 5 volumes I did for Terran Trade Authority, and they would just can't get them.
So on Instagram, I actually don't follow too many modelers. Mm-hmm. I actually mostly follow sort of a lot of concept artists and things like that because I look at them, I'm like, one day I want to build something like that. And I want to, even if I have to scratch build it, I want to do something, you know.
Very true.
Because I don't really buy into the what do you call it, the kit bashing for kit bashing's sake to get something.
Yep.
Right? I'd much rather sort of see something that started off as a concept, like it's come purely from imagination, and then someone's tried to make that in scale.
Yep.
I think that's a better path.
Yeah, no, I agree. Totally agree on that, mate. Yeah.
Should we get into some mail? We've actually got some mail.
Sure. Yeah, sounds like a plan.
First one comes from Ray Davis.
G'day, Ray.
Hello, Dave, Ian, Julian, and Benches. I hope that you're all well. Just wanted to chime in with a note of thanks. With some terrific teamwork, the first official basic model making for veteran classes wrapped up with a rounding success at the Oatley RSL sub-branch in Sydney. It was so popular that members wanted to extend the classes for another classes for 2. I want to just take the opportunity to thank On the Bench for reading out my email on air. It helped a great deal to get the word out and get people to inquire and join the classes. I'd also like to thank Grant from Hobbyco on behalf of the Oatley sub-branch for assisting with the kits, glues, paints and basic tool sets that were supplied for the event. All in all, a great opportunity to be part of this experience and to get to meet some amazing people and hear what they had to say. Due to the success of this event, the RSL is planning another build event in October.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, sorry the email's a little long, but thank you again. I really hope to catch up with the On the Bench team at Scale ACT in November.
That you will, Ray.
Warmest regards and respect. That's from Ray. And I saw he did a post.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's a very long email.
No. I saw you wait till the next one. I saw he posted on Facebook, and I was, you know what really impressed me? There was a woman there, and I don't want to say it, but she looked to be in her 70s or plus.
Yeah, and she was having the time of her life,
having the ball, making a Spitfire.
Yeah,
and it was just the greatest thing to see somebody, sitting
who
down.
normally would not touch that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and get into it and actually be enthused. Yeah, no, you did a great thing there, Ray.
Sensational. Yep, really well done, mate. And congratulations, and let us know when the other one kicks off in October. And
give us a date, and we'll promote it.
Yeah. Next one comes from an old friend of the show, Stuart Rolfe.
From Black Hat Scale Models.
Yes. Good day, gentlemen. It's been a long time between drinks, so I thought I'd stick my head above the trenches and say hi. I listened to your recent discussion about the use of aftermarket parts on model kits, and I believe that there was distinct lack of controversial content in the discussion, so here I am. Think of me as Squadron Commander Lord Flashheart. Woof woof. Right, let's get down.
You got to do that with more enthusiasm. Woof woof.
I don't know that reference.
Blackadder.
Okay, it's Blackadder.
Yeah. Season 4.
Aftermarket should be used on every model kit. Every kit. Carefully selected upgrade parts do just that. They upgrade the kit that is in the box. Yes, every model builder can build their model how they like to. No issue with that. However, what is also reality is that every model kit is a box of considered compromises made by the manufacturer. One, they want to keep the kit price low, yet offer just enough in the box to entice you, the buyer, to select their kit. 2, they have to offer the same parts in their kits that other manufacturers do, or you won't buy it. For example, aluminium ban rules on tanks, but not including too much or the kit price will rise. Then there needs to be the right amount of detail on the kit parts, but not so much it becomes difficult to use injection molding techniques. And some offer resin 3D printed parts in photo etch, but not everyone else likes these components. Excuse me. The answer is you buy the best kits available and then go out and spend your hard-earned dollaroos to buy better parts, or you scratch build upgrades. This is good. This is how it should be. Build better models. But why? Because the model you build with aftermarket looks better. Because you get an enormous sense of pride in improving an already nice model. Because you are helping to support that aftermarket manufacturer who is a little guy or girl in some faraway place that is just trying to make ends meet and make our hobby a better place. Because you want that sense of one-upmanship at your next model competition. And by the way, entering model comps to win is actually okay. Because making a model as good as you can make it is actually a healthy pursuit. And because you can meet other model makers and show off your unique model that is yours and not the same as the next model maker. It's yours. You improved it. You made it your own. It's yours. But number one reason to use aftermarket is chicks dig guys who can make stuff with their hands. That's right, men and ladies. Make the models because that's what gets the ladies. There we go. See you next time. Flash Heart out.
You got to hand it to Stuart. He knows how to say pen.
You know, I can imagine I've got this mental picture of him hunched over his computer typing this out at 1 a.m. in the morning with a couple of cans laying around him.
You're a pal.
Good to hear from you, mate, and looking forward to
definitely.
catching up with you
Yeah.
in Canberra.
Yeah, hopefully so, yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great to catch up with
Really
Stuart
good.
again.
Well, that's it from Mailbag, only short and sweet. So if you want to send us an email, you can write to us on thebench64@gmail.com. Always love to hear what you got to say, your thoughts, your mood, whatever. Just write in and let us know.
Yep.
Let's go on to the Patreon Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
And we shall see who the winner of the exclusive
OTB t-shirts.
OTB t-shirt is going to be this episode. And we fall on
Al Semler.
Al Semler.
Congratulations, Al.
I'll be reaching out to you, Al, and organise to get a t-shirt out to you.
That's awesome.
All right. We've got a fantastic interview coming up, so let's get right into it and have a chat to Mike the Kiwi. Gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show Mike the Kiwi, who I bumped into when I was over at Penang at the model show over there. G'day, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dave. Really appreciate it, mate. Calling in here from the bottom of the world, close down to Antarctica, bottom of New Zealand and the Alpine country. So really neat and honoured to have the opportunity to have a chance to catch up with you guys about things.
So which part of New Zealand are you actually from, Mike?
I'm originally from the Waikato area, Bay of Plenty, Chiefs country, heart of the All Blacks, as we like to say.
Yep.
But now I've moved around the country a lot, and now I've settled down at the bottom of New Zealand in a place called Te Anau, which is near the sort of alpine mountain area that we have for tourists and like.
So
Nice.
closer to, I'm just trying to geographically orientate myself. Are you closer to Queenstown or are you closer to, what's another town down there?
Invercargill.
I was going to
yes.
say Invercargill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
2
been,
hours 2 hours to north to Queenstown and 2 hours south to Invercargill, and over to the left-hand side over the western coast towards your side, Melbourne.
Right,
Nice.
gotcha.
Just in the mountains, not much here, mate.
That's the way you want it. No distractions.
Yeah, well, I say it's a beautiful part of the world. I've actually driven from Queenstown all the way down to Bluff through the Cargill, and it's spectacular country. It's one of the great secrets of the world, the South Island of New Zealand.
Definitely is.
Yeah, we've only got a population of around 3,000 here, but we get 1 million tourists coming through. So you wouldn't have come through here and sort of made a detour.
Yep.
But we're right on the road to what's called Milford Sound, which is the iconic mountain that you see all the time. I don't know if Ian's been over here or not. But
no, I haven't, but I've had a few friends that have been over and they couldn't rap enough about Milford Sound.
Yeah. Not a lot of people down here, but that works out okay, mate.
I'll bet.
So, Mike, we've got you want to talk about your book, but before we do, I want to sort of dive back and just give the listeners a bit of a flavour as to who you are and where you sort of come from. So, when did you first get into modelling?
Okay, probably a typical story of people of my vintage. I started when I was a young'un. My aunt bought me a model kit. My mum and dad actually bought me some plastic aircraft that I assembled, Airfix, Hella type things. And then when I visited my aunt on holiday, I got a chance to get a Tamiya SAS Jeep, which is my favourite purchase and probably the best one I've ever had. And I was very young when that first came out, and I was very young getting that. And that was the first one that I actually assembled and painted. So that was a really big deal. Didn't live long. That Jeep unfortunately got found by my toddler brother while I was at school one day, and disassembled in the bottom of my wardrobe.
Ouch!
To this day, I've got bits of it, but none of them all together. But it was a foundational part of what I did in terms of modelling, and I went on to do Tamiya, mainly Tamiya because it was easily accessible in the little local town that I lived in. And I managed to accumulate a total of, I think, 5 or 6 models over my first 5 or 6 years. And as you'll appreciate, having that many, I sort of had to work my way around them. So, I was very proud to get a SDKF Z7 half-track for my birthday when I was about 13. And that one, each year sort of went through a different paint scheme. So I think it started off a desert, then it went to the Russian front, then it got a winter tan, and then it got a camouflage one. I just sort of worked my way through until I could afford to buy them myself, mate.
Very cool.
Yeah. I joined as a result of modelling and war comics, I suspect, and my interest in military history. I joined the NZ Army when I was a kid. I was only 16, so I'd only just basically left school and joined the Army. Did 11 and a half years there, a couple of those embedded in the Aussie Army. And it had a fundamental impact on the way I thought about things and how I did stuff through my life. Towards the end of that Army career, I sort of picked up a book from Shep Payne, and that certainly started me on the journey towards figures and the like. From there, I'd left the Army in my mid-20s, and ended up working in a model store in New Zealand, a very famous one at the time, Model Air. Did a couple of years there. And part of the reason for that is as one of my exit strategies from the Army, I looked at setting up a small business with my wife called SIMS, SMMS, standing for Suzanne and Mike's Military Model Supplies. And at the time, it was really big. The Linden hadn't entered New Zealand. We sort of started bringing that in. And also etched brass kits, super detailing kits, that sort of thing.
What time period was this around? The 90s?
Early 90s, mate. Early 90s. So, it was really when things were ramping up from primarily the Linden, but a lot of stuff coming out of the States as well.
Yeah, and it was all mail order back in those days, and catalogues and modelling magazines were sort of our largest way of sort of finding out what was going on in the world.
Yeah, totally, mate. So that whole connection was through military modelling magazine. So, I finally finding a copy of Mil Mod in in the high school library, and that became my go-to for many years. And I'd collected all of those up, and so I've always lived in relatively remote locations, apart from a couple of times in Australia, and as a result, I've had to stay in touch with the hobby via those magazines, and later on, and when the internet arrived, getting connected there. So it's been a virtual relationship, really.
So you mentioned Champagne and Verlinden. I guess that sort of steered you towards your passion for doing figures and dioramas.
Yeah, in a way. One of the other suppliers that we had that I'd made a connection with. So towards the end of my military time, I spent a bit of time in the UK and had a chance to have a look at a few suppliers over there, and got a chance to go to Hystrix agents. So for anybody interested in figures, they'll know Hystrix agents out of the UK. It is the place. And spent a really good afternoon with Lynn Sangster there. And I was hosted by Nick Adams, who was running Hornet Models at the time. And Nick was with Roger Saunders, famous for the Hornet heads. And so I had a chance to meet with a lot of the guys as part of that process, which was really cool.
That's sensational.
Yeah.
The Kiwis and New Zealand in general, country that produces some fantastic modelers and also model production companies. So let's think back to Wingnut Wings. You've got Weta Workshops, which is just famous around the world and dominates in the movie industry and special effects. Now you've got Qatari sort of up and running, and they're kicking some major goals around the world with what they're producing as well. Must be something down in the water down there, mate.
Yeah, maybe. It's interesting. We're a little bit pioneering spirit. Most Kiwis chose to come here as opposed to Australians.
True.
Standing joke there, right?
Yeah.
So I think the thing about New Zealand, and it was interesting going to Malcolm and meeting a lot of the guys from Asia, particularly out of China, and having to explain what New Zealand was and, give them a sense of scale. And people underestimate, New Zealand, a bit like Aussie, it's a decent-sized landmass, nowhere near as big as Aussie, but not many people. Yeah. And so as a result, those that are here have to be fairly pioneering in their spirit. And I think one of the things we sort of pride ourselves on is that sort of quality versus quantity. And I think the companies that are successful, that have sort of raised up, do come from that sort of mindset, so do your best. It's a key thing that comes through. But another part of it, I think, is there's no real barriers. And I know the stories about Peter Jackson making The Lord of the Rings and Richard Taylor from Weta. That setup of the business and making those movies was, we'll make 3 at once. Yeah, why not? Nobody said you can't. And so, pushing the boundaries a bit is one of those sorts of things. And I think that really comes out in those companies that you mentioned specifically, where, out of the results of Richard and Tanya and Peter and Fran's collaborations and connections with their teams, they've built from very much the back end operations into major movie companies and special effects companies. And I think similarly with both Wingnut Wings and Qatari, having the right sponsorship and wanting to really make a difference, those little companies have really raised the flag for, maybe things that are quite niche, but are able to do it in a very high quality way. Because if you've got to do it, it's a long way away from the market. So it's got to really be able to stand out in the crowd. Hopefully that makes some sense, mate.
It does, yes.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think perhaps it's the fact that New Zealand is so isolated sort of leads to that sort of can-do sort of attitude. And, it's... And unfortunately, poor New Zealand sort of suffered from the weakness of your NZ dollar. So sometimes it's better to sort of do it yourself locally, and then when you go to the world with it, it's kicks some major goals.
Yeah. I think the other part of it too is, you're right, that we don't have a market big enough to sustain much at all. We've only got 5 million people in a landmass almost as big as Japan and bigger than the UK. So, everything's exported. And I think that sense of, if you're going to export something, typically it's going to go to Australia, it's going to go to the Northern Hemisphere. It's a long way for it to go.
Yeah.
And you've got to take that into consideration too. So it's no good shipping stuff that's not going to sell or not going to be marketable, right?
Exactly right. How's the modelling community going over there? We know a few guys over there in New Zealand who sort of keep in touch with. They're always extending invitations out to us to come over.
Which one day we have to do.
Which we have to do one day, yeah, absolutely. It seems like a very small but very tight-knit community over there.
Yeah, it is. And again, relative size, only 5 million. Yeah, it's I'd say it's small, disparate but well connected. So the main regions or the main towns, main cities, and even our cities are relatively small, but each of those has a tight connection in the club, typically from an IPMS background. So they're familiar around the world with those sorts of standards. We have won nationals each year that one of those clubs will host, and that's pretty special. There's another one coming up in November. It's a good connection for modellers to come together. It probably is more focused on plastic models, as you'd appreciate, but having attended last year's one in Palmerston North, a neat little session there. Correction, that was actually an Upper Hutt, but a really strong contingent from the Palmerston North area. I can see a lot more gunplay coming in, gaming, figures as well. So you're starting to see other things coming through. You don't have as many vendors, clearly. It's a bit of a trip.
Yeah.
And, standouts, obviously, Kotari, and they normally do a launch there as part of that setup and the strong relationship that Richard and Mark's formed Kotari.
Yeah.
Richard's from Wingnuts, and there's the connection between the two, right? So it's really Richard's management that is sort of glued and brought that quality through, but the expectations that the likes of Mark and Craig Sargent have had as part of that process, and it's always with a team. So no Kiwis make it on their own. Typically, they're always with a team and a group of collaborators that they work on. So I think all of those clubs, they are a tight connection. It tends to be quite collegial, so it's tight, and I think there's some effort made to try and include other miniature groups. I think there's still a chance to, but it's a little bit old school and general, I suppose, because of our relative isolation.
Yep.
Let's now move on to talking about your passion for World War One, and in particular Allied Figures, which will then lead us into talking about your book. So where does your interest specifically for World War One come from?
Yeah, well, as I went through my history, one of the things I did do is I never really focused when I started doing figures, although I started on a few of those World War II as a result of Berlinden and Shep Payne. I did quite a long stint running a forum called the MedRom Forum, Medieval and Romans. So I did a lot of different subjects in my figure painting career going through those, but I never really connected to them. Although I enjoy painting them, it was very much a thing. And I was certainly, as I was getting a bit older, searching for something that had a little bit more meaning. And I think the probably the biggest turning point came when I attended the Gallipoli Centennial in 2015 with my son.
Oh,
and
yep.
That centennial commemoration was a really important moving point for me. A couple of thousand Kiwis and about 6,000 Aussies were there, and we were hosted by the Turkish military and the Turkish community, and getting a sense of that whole operation really moved me, so much so that I decided I wanted to really focus and remember the legacy of the young guys that went there, because I really got an overwhelming sense of the waste. It was just such a pointless exercise, absolutely pointless. I spent, when I was in Aussie, I spent a bit of time at Portsea, and the bit of ground that the guys covered was looked like it was smaller than the Portsea Peninsula, right? So there wasn't much there. And the hills weren't that much bigger.
No.
And to think they spent months and months and months not going anywhere was a real shame. So that really touched me. And as a result, I sort of put my energy into learning a little bit more about the guys. And as I studied them, I decided that what I would do is I'd start to focus on personality figures. So every single figure I have has a name. Every single subject has some provenance back to a particular individual and or somebody that particular name represents in a unit. And that combined with the opportunity to visit Scale of War and the Great War exhibition, which were on at the time, there was all Centennial, those were both put together by Peter Jackson's collection, as well as the Weta Workshops crew. So Richard and the team, I don't know if you've ever been there, but if you haven't, it's certainly a place to go. Again, quality versus quantity. There's only half a dozen over three to one size figures, so they're massive figures.
Yes.
And so the difference is they make a real impact in terms of the individual. So combine that with Peter's Great War exhibition display of Chinook Bear, which is at Gallipoli. He had 5,000 figures on that. And though I said that we had quite a disparate community of modellers, that was actually painted by gamers and modellers from across the country, those 5,000 figures, in a relatively short time. So you've got the massive expanse and the scale of the operation, as well as the scale, the size of the individuals involved in telling their stories. So all of that combined to really move me into focusing more on World War One and understanding that.
I think it's hard for other people outside of Australia and New Zealand to really understand how much of an impact World War One had on our cultures, and
especially Gallipoli,
and forming both modern New Zealand and modern Australia as it stands. Perhaps maybe the Canadians and certainly the Brits would have an understanding, but it was such a deep sort of scar and wound to both sort of countries, but at the same time it was sort of very foundational as well. And I remember growing up as a kid, that came through as a kid, 60 years later. I remember even meeting sort of, diggers from World War One when I was a wee lad. And even today with Anzac Day, as you well know, it's such a deep and sort of powerful part of our psyche.
Yeah, it is, well and truly. I think Europeans, Canadians, very strong in terms of their whole psyche. To a lesser degree, the Americans, although there is a strong connection in part of those. I was really taken back and really appreciated this a little bit more when I went up to Malcolm, and I sort of, just before I was going up, I was getting ready for it and looking at taking up the last copies of my book to sell, and I was talking to one of the guys out of Singapore, and he said to me, World War One's not really a thing up here in Asia, right? We sort of start, if anybody's going to do anything, they'll start in World War Two and sort of move on from there.
Well, that was their deep scar, wasn't it, World War Two in Asia? Yeah.
And it does. I think that's the thing about the hobby that we need to appreciate, that we all have different histories and we all come from different places. So the things that we choose to model or focus on tends to relate to the history, hence, that sort of sense where I started and the influences that we had. And we're one slice of a niche of people that are doing it. And I've, listened to the articles, the interviews you guys have done on Gundam and Gunpla, and whilst we've had a little bit of exposure to that, and certainly my kids watched that when they were young, that sort of sense that it's a different world of history, it's a different way of telling things, and it's a whole different space, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think that people of my generation, modelers of my generation, haven't still quite grasped this tidal wave of Gundam and Gunpla that's sort of, washing through the modelling community. Julian's got a better sort of handle on it because he sort of keeps tabs on what's happening elsewhere around the world. But it's just even financially, and it's just our traditional modelling is only like 10% of the modelling around the world, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know if it's 10%.
Well, financially speaking, the money they make is well above.
I don't know. I don't know how the landscape goes, but I mean,
I think I looked into it a couple of years ago.
It's hard to say. I mean, like, wargaming, like Warhammer type stuff, they just make money hand over fist. It's really crazy. And then the Gundam stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people in Asia. A lot of people.
Yeah. And that's where the youth is starting out these days. That's where they're cutting their teeth.
Yeah. I mean, like, a much less popular. Let's say that the hobby in Asia is far less popular there than it is here, but it doesn't matter because
there's so many.
They've got 10x the population, right? So,
yeah. Actually, I want to touch on the other side of the Asian thing. That's because, Mike, that's where we met. And before we get to your book, I just want to have a chat about Malcolm and how you ended up over there, a Kiwi all the way from down south of New Zealand, ends up in Penang, Malaysia.
Yeah, so another expression we have here is good things take time, right?
Yeah.
So I mentioned that back in the early noughties, I was involved in a forum, an online forum called MedRom, or Medieval and Roman Forum, and at the time I met a younger South Korean sculptor coming through, and that was Young Bok Song from Young Miniatures.
Yes,
so if you're into figures, most people will know it's probably one of the most known brands, certainly in the historical, but also in fantasy realm. And I reached out to Young at the time and just sort of caught up with him about a couple of busts that he was doing and talked to him. And there was a Roman and a Mongol that he'd done, and a Celt. And we got, chatting to each other, and we're of a similar vintage. He's probably a little bit younger than me. And we just got talking about things. And I'm the sort of person that sort of likes to be proactive in helping people and connecting with people. And so that was part of the process. And I, for example, suggested to him a name that he could use for one of the busts. And fast forward 2018, and I'm on a Rugby World Cup trip to Japan, and I've been working on one of Young's busts as a bit of a tribute to World War One soldiers, and one of those was one of his World War One busts that I wanted to put a gas mask onto, so I changed it up a little bit and converted it around, and instead of having the gas mask dangling to one side, I thought I'd put that on his face. Talking to Young in an email, he said, "Hey, look, mate, you don't have to make that a just one for yourself. I wouldn't mind doing that as a special release at some time." So after the Rugby World Cup finished, we popped over to South Korea to see him, and I delivered the master that I'd been working on. And that was, some 7 or 8 years before Malcolm. But like I said, good things take time. And just before Malcolm, or late last year, Young got in touch with me and said, "Hey, look, be keen for you to be involved in Malcolm. Would you like to come along as a judge? And while you're there, you could we could do that special release we talked about." So that special release became Herb, 50 only copies coming out. And so I was able to go to the show for both judging. He also said, "Oh, well, while you're there, you might as well do a demo, mate, to explain the way you would do textures and how you paint uniforms." Because I suppose one of the other things that I've done is carved out a little bit of a niche in terms of how I approach painting textures and how I try and get authenticity into my figures. So do a demo on that. And he said, "We'll release the bust, and we'll also," I asked to be okay to sell the last copies of my book, and he said, "Yep, that'd be fine." We arranged that through Ming. Next thing you know, May this year, I'm over there with Andy Cairns. You talked to Andy earlier on.
Yep.
Andy's a mate of mine, and we both decided to go. And whirlwind trip, fantastic there spent just on a week up in Malaysia, and a nice return visit in Singapore.
Lovely.
And so it turned out, fantastic experience. But like you said, quite away from home, but really invaluable to get a sense of what the modelling world in Asia is like. And
They're intense, aren't they? I can't get over how intense they are. I mean,
they take it seriously, right?
Yeah, serious. They play for keeps. I mean, I was watching them sort of put their models down, and they're there with little brushes and little cans of compressed air blowing off any sort of imaginary dust off it, and there's beads of sweat on their brow as they're placing it in a certain area. Then once they do that, they'll sort of stand back and sort of keep circling around and come back and have a look. And yeah, geez,
presentation.
I've got a standing joke that says never get between an American and a raffle. Well, never get between an Asian modeller and setting up his figure or setting up his model because cause
you'll get trampled.
Yeah, I think that whole cultural thing. I think that Julian picked up on it. You know, there's again to be able to stand out. You know, in a crowd, you've got to be able to put the extra effort in. And interestingly enough, in the figure modelling world, I think Asian modellers would be very much setting the standard. You know, some of the in the historical realm. Some of the releases that are coming out from both Young, Life, the Life miniatures, the sorts of figures that you see, the painting that you get it really is up there, and the rest of the world is now. I think that it's flipped. You know, when we were young with military modelling, it used to be modellers out of the UK and Europe were setting the standard, in the US coming through started to set another standard. There's quite a bit of competition between those two sides of the Atlantic. But I think nowadays, without doubt, the way we aspire to, and the place I aspire to, is what I'd call the whole Australasia region, you know, that Pacific Rim, and seeing the quality that's coming out of the number of countries up there is just amazing, you know, and really impressive, mate.
I think
if there was for us, right?
Yeah, I think if there was a modelling Olympics, their figure modellers out of Asia would constantly be gold medal winners.
Well, why are you looking at me like that, Dave?
Well, because I'm looking at you because you've got your finger on the pulse of a lot of the discussions.
Europe is still, I would say, Europe is still very, very strong. I mean, they've got a long history of military, you know, conflicts and craftsmanship, and you know, all that sort of combines to create like a very great environment that brings about lots of, you know, figure-focused people. Asia is kind of the newcomer, I would say, because I don't think that they, you know, like you look at all the model kit manufacturing and things like that sort of formed the starting point of this whole journey. And all that came out of Europe initially, you know, Airfix, Frog, all that sort of thing.
Yep.
And while the Japanese companies were there, it's taken quite a long time for that to filter into the rest of Asia and be affordable enough that people could get into it as a hobby. But then you've also got like things like anime and Gundam, and those sort of things have formed the gateway for a lot of people in Asia to get into these sort of subjects.
And I need to go back and preface what I mean when I said that they could, you know, in particular the fantasy and the anime type figures that I saw at Malcolm were just
next level.
I mean,
stratospheric. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, the anime aspect on its own is huge.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about like a visual medium that can cover every base.
Yep.
You know, and you can do sort of subjects and settings in that form almost as, you know, good, if not better, than you can with all the CGI in the world. And then from that, you've got video games, and then all this creates, you know, if you go to the Japanese stores, there's so many figures that you can buy. It's really crazy in all different sizes. People are they're selling like $5,000 figures that are like, you know, a meter tall in Japan.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, people are buying those.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, that's just the peak, and that's obviously like the, you know, you got to look at the sort of the medium and the lower end of the scale as well, which is where your modeling is going to lie, because those are more affordable options. And then people start going, well, you know, I don't want to just buy something off the shelf. I want to, you know, like get involved with it and paint it myself. So there's also a whole side of things where people buy action figures and other types of figures, and they'll paint them, right? Because you know that's the advantage of if you're into that sort of stuff, you don't have to paint figures that come in kit form or things that come in resin. You can paint anything.
I think we took a bit of a sidetrack there.
Yeah, sorry.
Julian, I think Julian's on the money, mate. I think that was a fabulous summary, because I think in all fairness, people of our generation, as you mentioned before, Dave, probably are more Eurocentric. And I think the whole industry that we talk about in modelling tends to be more Eurocentric. And I think this move with the Asian modellers coming through the Asian markets has actually grown. But I've mentioned, my first models and many of us were coming out of Japan. So it's not like they just started yesterday.
No.
Yeah.
I think that's real evidence that, there's a latent talent and a latent interest there. If you look at in the fantasy figure area, you look at the I don't know if you had a chance yet to look at Miniature Marvels here with Trent Denniston on representing Australia. That really neat program, a bit like MasterChef type thing, but it's a really neat chance to sort of see the breadth of coverage. And I think Trent's the most remote out of that, but without a doubt, when it comes to figure painting generally, the Europeans create the style and the Asians follow through on that. And I think there's a chance now to sort of get a balancing up on that one.
Yeah, I think with the Asians that they follow through and they refine it.
And and just the final sort of part of that, because I'm really keen to get to talk about your book, Mike, but the age as well, I couldn't get over. I mean, we're talking about young to sort of middle age where people are sort of taking part in this, and I was very, very, very impressed that there was a lot of young people sort of coming through. Well, certainly what I saw at Malcolm anyway.
One thing, other aspect is that sort of the difference between the sort of Asian sphere and the European sphere, so to roughly speaking,
We're generalising.
We'd be speaking in very general terms here, is that Asians tend to approach things from a more technical skill first kind of approach, whereas the European style, and you can see it the way it's gone when you look at Mosen Model Show, it's very much a more sort of artistic style of things, because they've come across from portrait painting and the like, whereas in Asia, it's a very different kind of mindset, like how do I sort of explain it? Generally speaking, in Asia, there's there's a lot of people and a very competitive atmosphere in terms of academics and things, and there's always been a more emphasis on
perfection.
Well, yes, on perfection, but also in like when you're there's like you look at Europe and you've got the Louvre, right? You've got like all this sort of built up culture type stuff to do with
the Renaissance.
With the Renaissance, there's a huge art thing, and then but Asia doesn't necessarily have the same sort of
cultural sort of.
History. It's not like it's not there, but it's not as much. It's not as emphasized.
It comes from a different angle, and
especially not in the modern era where everything's all to do with tech and manufacturing and things like that. Yeah. So you gotta take that under the whole way you view things.
Well, here's a radical thought. So the Asian figure painters, fantasy and anime, they're obviously being not inspired by. They're being inspired by the comics and the magazines and the cartoons and the games for which that comes from. Whereas,
also like economic development plays a part into it. Yeah. So it's sort of like Japan's always been a luxury market. So they've always had access to the all the tools, all the cultural and sort of things that surround model kit making first, and then it sort of radiated out of that into Korea, then into China, and then now you're seeing it filter down into
Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia. I mean, it's not like it wasn't there in Southeast Asia, but it was a bit more sort of
subdued.
Well, it was more like not everyone could afford it, and still not everyone can. You know, like gunpla are very, very cheap. You can buy them for $15, but $15 can be a lot of money. You know, in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, fair enough.
So you know, then there's also the fact that you know when people can't afford things, they tend to do things themselves.
Yes.
You know,
Make it yourself.
so there's also that aspect. You know, like it's hard to be too generalistic, but there are generalized sort of trends that go on. You know?
Yeah.
I want to circle back to Mike now and ask a question. What pushed you to publications?
Yeah, hey, I did. I just must mention, I really did appreciate Julian's comments there. It gives a good sense of where it's coming from, and you know, here I am probably talking about my book, which is, you know, when we're talking about niches, it's probably the niche of the niche of the niche.
Yes.
So much so that you know, over 1,000 books in that original print run, all sold out within a space of a couple of years. The publisher said that whilst the author was great, we didn't know if the niche was that broad to do another print run.
Yep.
So the book's just an e-book now. But if I go back to the sort of journey, so what happened was in lockdown, I started to, you know, as we all did, try and find things to do. And one of the things I did was did a couple of rough videos on YouTube, just explaining what I did, where I went, and how I did stuff. And they were of interest. And one of the people I connected with as part of that process was a chap called Andy Belsey in the UK, in England. And Andy's well known for his trench dioramas. He's a real fan of World War I trench dioramas and scenes, and has done some amazing stuff there. And he was a professional modeller, been doing those for many, many years, and I'd come across him from time to time. And I one of the things I also do, being isolated, is I like to reach out to people, like I mentioned with Young, and just explore collaborations and the chance to sort of work together with people. And so I reached out to Andy and I said, hey, mate, look, I love those trenches you're doing. Would you like me to do a figure or two for them? And we both had a connection with Tommy's War. Darren Parker Mead set that business up, and it was a sort of well known for World War I 32nd scale figures. And so we came to an agreement there. And whilst Andy and I were working on things, a UK publisher, specialist publisher, Crowwood Press, reached out and said, hey, we'd love to get a World War I book to mark the event, and because we think there's a bit of a market for it. So as part of that process, Andy said, oh, well, I'm probably not the guy to talk to when it comes to painting figures. Why don't you have a chat to Mike, and I'll do one on World War I trenches, which I've got all the material for. I can do that.
Very cool.
You know, I've always said for quite a while that there's so much untapped potential in World War I.
Yeah.
You know, it's often overlooked. Like, coming from my generation that sort of grew up with parents who were into World War II stuff.
Yeah.
World War I always seemed like,
far away.
Isn't that like World War II 0.5 kind of a thing where it's...
No, it's totally different kettle of fish.
Completely different. And there's a sort of an ornate quality to the way things were back then that, you know, like you sort of see like all the early, you know, planes and tanks and the uniforms as they all, you know, before they got to the way they were in World War II, you know, the evolution of, you know, camouflage-ish, you know, style uniforms and the weaponry. Yeah. I mean, for me, a lot of it came from playing Battlefield 1. I mean, laugh as much as you like, but that was a fantastic game, and it was a big gateway to a lot of people as to like what was going on in that conflict. And then you've got what was the other thing? Well, I mean, there's obviously like all the more recent sort of kits, you know, that came from Wingnut Wings and from
Copper State
models. Yep. Yes.
TACOM.
Yeah. But there was also like other media. I had it in my head just a second ago, but I forgot about it. It's really I spent a lot of time watching Forgotten Weapons, because he goes a lot. You know, he's a gun guy, and he goes into a lot of the history of how things went from black powder to machine guns in a really fairly short space of time, and most of it was World War One.
Yeah, that was very innovative.
Yeah, I mean, like at the start of World War One, you had your bolt action rifles, but by the end of it, you had basically what you saw in World War Two.
Yeah, very true, very true.
And I find that stuff fascinating.
Oh, me too.
Yes, but probably just picking up on both Ian and Julian's point. Remember that Lord of the Rings came from World War One as well.
Yes,
Tolkien.
That's right.
Tolkien was a victim of the First World War. And that's where that creativity came from. So certainly from, again, the 20th century, from our sphere of the world was sort of transformed by World War One. So the impact was just unbelievable.
Yes, very true. Yeah,
and I think that sense of actually understanding that was an important part of, again, coming back to those personal stories. Every single one of those was an individual.
Exactly.
And typically, essentially, it took out an entire generation of young men. And who knows what the world would have been like if a few more of them have stuck around, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, and on top of that, brought on the great pandemic, the Spanish flu as well, which killed even more people.
Yeah, totally. In that whole sense, that was actually coming through. I've just finished a book about the New Zealand World War One ace, Grid Caldwell. Quite an amazing story. And part of it talks about the young pilots in 2018 starting to get the early stages of that with the American reinforcements coming through and bringing that through. And I hadn't realised it sort of started unpacking at the end of the war. And as you say, Dave, just sort of led on and on. So the impact of it is quite amazing. And right, whilst it's potentially an untapped market, it hasn't been as popular. And I think I mentioned one of my earlier influences with comic books when I was young, and there was a very moving series called Charlie's War in Battle Action or 2000 AD nowadays.
Oh,
and that's been re-released. Charlie's War is an incredible series of comics that were written in one way of telling it. So all of that sort of combined together reinforced my interest. But also, I think the important point that, I'd already been encouraged to write a book at some stage about modelling by my wife and sons, who both are all artists and authors as well. And so I sort of shied away, but that lockdown pressure sort of got me thinking a little bit more about it. And this door opened and said, well, would you like to do one on World War One? And Crowwood Press deal with niche books, so I sort of narrowed it down. But my approach to it was to create something whilst I used that as my particular pathway and the theme that I was studying at the time. It's actually the way I wrote it was based upon what I do with work, which is very much around continuous improvement, the Kaizen approach. Again, that sort of that mindset of how to develop, how to learn, how to coach, and how to improve. And I actually wrote the book in that way. It was actually modelled off a way of technical manuals from the US Army in World War II, and the way they taught post the war, called Training Within Industries. And I think that's part of the reason the book's been well received, because it feels like something you can learn from. It's not just a showcase of things that I've done, but it teaches you, whatever genre, whatever approach you are using for figures, how you can actually develop your own style and gain confidence in terms of that. So I think that's one of the reasons why the book is a little bit different from others. And I've even had comparisons to some of the stuff from some of those legendary books that I looked at when I was young, and getting a compliment to say that it sort of works off the back of something like Chet Payne's book was just unbelievable to get a sense of being put into that sort of realm. But I think that's one of the pitches that I do when I'm selling it, is that it's actually about the way you develop your own style, your own approach, your own form of painting, and being comfortable and happy with that. Well, because we're not all aiming to be masters.
No.
Many of us just want to get better painters.
Yes, that's right.
Well, the cover of your book is a diorama of a Gallipoli trench scene, and just looking at that, I can feel the grains of sand. I can, it's almost like, I feel as if I've been rolling in the sand itself. That's how much that sort of jumps out at me, that particular piece. I don't know how you've done that, but you're actually looking at it. And I know it sounds really dumb, but you can feel the sand and the dirt in that particular piece.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I've got it on the shelf above me, actually. So the little hut was built by Andy Belsey as part of that collaboration, and I did the figures and the materials around it and the scenic parts. I haven't done many dioramas because it take a little bit more time and effort, and it'll get a bit bogged down with doing commissions, which are usually single figures. But that one there was, each of those guys have got a name. Each of them represent specific individuals, and that shows the native contingent or the Maori troops arriving in early July 1915, and the medical officer, Sir Peter Buck, went on to become a very famous Kiwi, but he's directing the guys to the lines, and they're being supplied by a Wellington infantryman, Al, who's part of that contingent, sort of welcoming the guys. And the whole cultural part of that's tried to explain that. And I've always been, I suppose, a precise and in some ways pedantic modeller. And so I do try hard to represent and replicate that authentic feel of not just the equipment and the clothing, but also the individuals themselves. So every single person that I paint is intended to, connect you with the story or that particular person. So I work hard to try and get that representation. So I'm really stoked that comes across to you, mate.
It's not just the figures. Like looking at this and just looking at those blankets in the background.
Yeah, and it's to the blanket on the left. You immediately think that
I can actually pick that up and move it. It looks,
but you immediately think that's been purchased in a European bazaar somewhere, and the guy sort of brought it across to the landing with him.
Yeah, but no, I'm just looking at the way it's painted. It's just it's amazing.
There's a lot to go on. Like, I'm just having fun looking at like the different shades of the wrappings around their legs and and the dust on the boots and things like that.
So there's a couple of things on that, right? So the blankets are the ones that they bought from home. Some of them are, one of them's got the unit writing on it because they sort of label them, like the old War Department logo that's been stenciled onto the blanket. That came from that. I mentioned Peter Jackson's Great War exhibition.
Yep.
So in that, you had a one-to-one trench that you could go into, and you could actually go into the trenches in Gallipoli, and you could actually come under fire as you're in those. So a really immersive experience.
Wow.
The little hut there had those blankets on, so I used that as a reference point for that. And probably got to be careful with who's listening to the call, but there's a little bit of Chinook bear soil on there. So some of that dust is actually from Chinook bear.
That makes it so much more special.
Yeah, so I don't know, slipped into my bag as I was coming home back in 2015. So no names, no pack drill on that one. But that's the sort of connection that I'm aiming for. I'm trying to get that genuine sense. And I don't, like I said, it could be a kid growing up in the Bronx, that you're trying to represent, or it could be a young Asian girl roller skating around the place. Whoever the individual is, you want to try and get that sense that that's the person, that's the real part of it. For me, the people, the organic elements are more important than the things around them. And I think that sort of sense, if you're going to go to the trouble of doing a figure, explore how you can make it like a person and get that connection is where I'm coming from. And that's what I try and strive for, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean, because if you're doing like a generic figure, right, you're just doing a generic figure. But if you're doing a specific person, you're going to basically up your game a bit, because you want to make it look like this person, not some generic Muppet freaking straight out of the box.
Yeah, I mean, well, I imagine that there's the different sort of stages you go through. Like, there's the point where you're just happy painting figures.
Yeah.
Then there's the point where I want to make a specific individual.
Yes.
And they've got a name.
Mm-hmm. They've got a history.
And you can pick from historical sculpting of particular people. How there are some figures of famous Luftwaffe pilots, famous heroes of various types. And then beyond that, you have to make your own. So you're going to have to start sculpting.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to start reposing arms. You're going to have to, especially like if you're doing,
you're going to have to up your game.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're going to do even a small diorama like this, you can't just easily grab things off the shelf and put them in the scene, because they're not going to look like they're interacting with each other.
That's right.
You have to, like you have to go, okay, well, I want a guy who is holding a notepad and he's got a medic's pouch and he's got this particular type of hat, but there's nothing on the shelf that has it. I'm going to have to do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to start, piecing things together, and that's how you write this story. That's how you write the scene. You've got to frame it appropriately.
It gives you more an emotional connection too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it'll drill all the way down to like what's the expression that they've got on their face.
Yeah,
you can't.
Very true.
Just have a blank one necessarily.
Nope.
I just want to comment on the detail to attention to detail with the painting of the uniforms I
immediately had my eye drawn to that the pistol pouch.
Yeah.
Because it's a very different kind of leather to the kind on the guy on the left. It's like bandolier, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It really says, this is almost like an officer's pistol or something, And
the chap on the left with his closer to the opening of the hut or whatever it is there. That left leg, which is in the background, is slightly darker, which just gives you the hint of sort of depth to the whole thing as well.
Yeah, he's got a couple of flies on his back as well, mate.
Oh, does he really?
Cool. They were covered with flies, these guys, right? So
yeah, of course,
flies added on there. And I suppose that talks to the whole, it depends where you come from, but for me, humanity's more important than the things.
Correct.
And so that emphasis, when you look at something, you're looking at the human aspects, and you're trying to look at how that person fits within that environment that they're working in. And, I started off just like everybody else with that SDKF 7 half-track back in the day, and, a full crew of, about 10 or 13 odd Germans on the back.
Yeah, but they were all the same figure, weren't they?
Yeah,
pretty
were
much.
all the same figure.
They're all the same figure, all the same
maybe the
static
driver
pose.
was a different one, right? But that sort of sense that they're not robots as such, right? And I think that's the thing that differentiates things. And I think Julian picked up on a good point too. So there's an evolution, and it was one of the things I did in my demo at Malcolm. I shared a bit of a rough video on that one as well. But essentially, it's a sort of evolution as a modeler, as an artist that you're looking at, which starts at a basic level, where all you're doing is sticking the bits together, painting the bits, just trying to do your best at that. And then you come to a stage when you start to learn, and I call it skilled, where you're essentially copying something and just repeating that process and refining it. And you can become very skilled and very good at that. And arguably a lot of modelers are actually at that point, and that's sort of where they stop, for want of a better term. But in fact, they just keep repeating the same sorts of stuff. Adopting and adapting, which I talk about. So they adopt something and then they adapt it to their approach. But then the next stage up from that, so the third stage for me is around mastery. So beyond mastery, it is actually that sense of artistic value. So you've got a technical mastery at the skilled level, but then you've got an artistic approach. And it comes back to that conversation we had before about artists. And I think the very best Asian figure painters that we see do have an artistic background. So they are painting like artists. And that's the sort of thing that I and other modelers actually strive for. And if you look at some of the armour modelers, they're certainly looking at an artistry in terms of what they're actually producing. You look at Rinaldi, Mike Rinaldi's stuff. You're looking at that sort of thing. It's about the art, which is beyond just putting the bits together and being competent at that. And I think that philosophy of those sort of three stages was something I'm a firm believer in. And I think everybody can move through those if they want to and choose to. And the thing that differentiates artists is you're known for your own style. You don't say you've got a style. Other people tell you you've got a style. But then you're creating your own aspects to things. So people recognise your style because you're actually putting something that's different from others. So you're describing a particular style that's related to Mike the Kiwi that you don't necessarily see in other people's work. Although at Malcolm, what you did see is you saw some of the younger modelers coming through, the younger figure artists were very much, they become masters at copying what they'd seen of Kirill Kanaev.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the sort of thing. So that sort of evolution from basic to skilled technical mastery through to artistry. And I suppose that's sort of that evolution that I'm trying to help others understand and be part of.
Yeah,
Well,
I have to agree. I completely agree with that. With that philosophy. Yeah.
Well, with your book, you don't talk about painting figures until you get to chapter 5. Your first 4 chapters, well, chapter 1 describes what sort of kits are available. Chapter 2, you talk about the materials and tooling, as well as touching on photography and lighting. Chapter 3 is basic model figure construction. Chapter 4, it's an overview of paints and inks that are available, which that'd be just buy the book just for that.
Yeah.
But chapter 5 is where you start covering figures, and I'm interested here to talk about a little bit about you work very hard to be authentic in your modelling, and you prefer to use the term authentic as opposed to realistic. And you worked with a collector of World War I uniforms, just to sort of have a look at different styles and how they sort of all changed and the colours, etc., etc. Do you just want to sort of just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so you'll notice that content page could go on the front of just about any figure modelling book.
Yes.
Or, Arguing modelling book, right? And that was a deliberate effort to sort of take it away from that First World War and stuff. I think the thing about the shying away from realistic, the other word I might use is accurate. And you guys, that'll resonate. The difference between authentic and accurate. And if you look that up in the dictionary or Wikipedia or whatever, you'll actually see that the key difference is, and it relates back to what Julian said before, accurate, realistic is a perception, but it's based upon technical thoughts. Okay, it's based upon things being right, as opposed to authentic, which for my sense is they feel right. You get a sense that they've got an essence of reality, but it's a feeling as opposed to a fact. So accurate, things are only a certain distance long. They're only a certain distance high. Is that figure the right height relative to a 6-foot man in that particular scale? We all know that as soon as you start measuring things, it's a lot easier to have an argument about how long your particular tape measure is or what metric scale you're using versus imperial, etc., etc. There's a whole lot of thing discussion as opposed to when you're talking authentic. For me, it's talking again about the way you feel about something. Does it feel like it, as each of you were describing, when you're looking at that, the pistol band, the pistol holster is painted in a particular colour based upon as close as possible, but it might not be totally accurate, but it gives you a sense that it's authentic. It feels like it's a leather pistol holster worn by Sir Peter Buck when he is in Gallipoli, as opposed to, some gloss Tamiya enamel that I whacked out of a jar and popped on the side of it, and that's sort of that artistic sense that I'm trying to achieve. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah,
absolutely. We've seen, everyone has seen, film and television and has seen people in period dress for these eras, and we have like an understanding of how these things are supposed to somewhat look and flow naturally. I mean, we're all familiar with other human beings and how the mannerisms and the poses that people take, like the way a hand is when it holds a cigarette, for example. And these things come across, So if you see a figure that is kind of very, there's something not quite right about the way that they're forming their mannerisms and things. These are things you can pick up on, and it doesn't take much. Like even like someone who's not that experienced and knowledgeable about World War One subject matter can pick these sort of things out and go, yeah, doesn't look quite right. You know,
yeah, it's funny. It's like a little tickle at the back in
yeah,
the back
they
of
wouldn't
neck.
be able to articulate it.
Yeah, you can't articulate, but you can feel when something's slightly off or not quite right. That's how you can pick, these AI pictures. Just looking at it, you can go, oh, something doesn't quite feel right about that. And that makes you hunt for what it is that's not right.
Yeah, I mean, and the AI stuff and between average and really good modeling, that's all on one spectrum of going from really bad to really good and impressionable art, Yep. I mean, I could go on forever about that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that part of the reason for focusing on the difference when it comes to figures between being authentic versus being accurate or realistic is this sort of sense. What I was actually trying to do is I was trying to move people to a deeper level of thinking rather than just worry about the materials I was using.
Yeah.
So whether I use acrylics or oils or I use a brush from Winsor & Newton or I use a cheap Stylex from South Korea, none of that stuff matters if you know what you're trying to achieve.
Yes.
It's one of my contentions, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean, it's something that a lot of people when they first get into, like, they decide I want to get into figure painting, and how do I get from where I am to where they are? And of course, the easiest way to do it is to
practice.
What can I buy? What can I spend my money on to narrow that gap? If I've got all the same stuff as them, then it can't be what I'm using. It has to be my skill.
Yeah.
And at least then I can focus on that. And they focus on their skill for a while, and only when they've cleared enough hurdles do they get to the point of artistic merit,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, and I think, another expression that I particularly like is, we would have heard about, practice makes perfect.
Yep.
No, I say that's a myth, right? It's actually perfect practice makes perfect. So what that talks about is a deliberate intent. I'm a big fan of trying new materials to learn from, to see if they can be applied or used, or to speed things up or to make things easier. However, what you should be doing in part of that process is deliberately running an experiment that sort of says, yeah, this is what I wanted to do. If I do this, do I get a different result? If I don't, I haven't learned anything. If I do, I have learned something, and moving on that continuous improvement loop. So I think that's an important part of what I'm trying to get across in the book. So it's not a case of read this book, you'll be able to do everything fine. It's about just getting into this cycle of learning and constantly practicing this sort of process and thinking through. So that the learning process becomes something that's rote as opposed to the method that you're doing or trying.
Yeah, I've got the perfect example of that perfect practice makes perfect thing. So I was watching Ninjon on YouTube, and he was talking about how he went from being a complete beginner to winning Golden Demon in 3 years.
Yeah.
And the way he put it is that he says your brain, the human brain, wants to take shortcuts. It wants to take the easy way out every single time. It wants to reduce things to the minimal effort. But you can't take that route. You have to be... And the way he sort of put it is he would sit down and he would put in, I think he said something like 3 hours every night. Yeah. And he says he would be properly focused the whole time.
Yeah.
Like he would be, sweating, quote unquote, trying to really push himself every single night. And that's how he did it in 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's dedication.
Yeah. It's not easy.
Well, if you want to, just like a sportsman, like a sports person, right? That sense, if you think about, and I think this is one of the other things that is an important aspect of what I'm trying to get across the book, the sense of the role of coaches and mentors. Building on what you just talked about, Julian, I can't recommend enough Miniature Masters just to have a look at that sort of model, all in action at different levels of the guys coming through. So you've got a group of what I say, good artists, and you've got a group of, support judges and facilitators that are actually helping them all grow. You actually see that cycle coming through. The trick is to move away from randomly doing stuff, I'll give something a go, versus being very focused and deliberate around the decisions you make.
Doing something with focus,
Yeah, so Ninja wouldn't have done what he did. He wouldn't have, he may well have set out a program to say, that goal in 3 years' time, I want to win a Slayer sword. He's laid out a method that says, okay, in order to do this, these are the steps that I need to be able to do. All right. And again, goal setting is part of that, but then understanding what bits he needs to learn now, which bits need to be practiced more, and that sort of sense. And if you think about just the education of school, and when you start off, you learn that reading and writing, you get to a stage where reading and writing becomes second nature and you're learning more advanced processes. And I think that's one of the things to think about when you're modelling, that ability to actually start simple, get good at those bits. That becomes like a breathing exercise, and then you get better and better and better by adding or simplifying, refining on top of that process. Make sense? Have I lost you, Dave?
You got me. I'm sorry, I'm busy scrolling through your Facebook page photos and looking at all your models that you've, figures that you've done in the past.
I think people sort of rapidly come up through the skill levels in the beginning because they have, they're far below what they want to achieve. And so they're quite focused on what they need to do to get there. But after a while, the goals become more vague in the middle section, and that's when they start to plateau. And you sort of, or maybe you hit a wall, like you go, okay, well, I can block things in now. How do I get from blocking to shading,
Yep.
Yeah, and not knowing how to do that. And sometimes without an effective teacher or coach or mentor,
100%.
You don't know how to move to the next stage, right? I think clubs play an important role in it, but this can all be done virtually as well nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And you can mindlessly watch videos and be impressed by what people do, or you can actually pick up something from them and then look at how you apply that. Once you've mastered that, but then do something else and do that. But you need feedback in order to actually do that improvement as well.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of people out there who are, very skilled enough to do the job and show you how it's done, but they can't tell you how they did it,
Yeah.
They're not good teachers.
And that comes from the level that you're actually thinking at and what role you play in that relationship. Because you need to, in order to become a coach or a mentor, you need to have a relationship with somebody to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is why, the communications courses exist, because not everyone has the natural ability to, to make these things and teach people how to do things. You have to be able to articulate things and show them and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
Exactly right.
But what a book.
Well, speaking of book, we've been talking a lot about it, but have we actually mentioned the name of the book? It's called Modelling and Painting World War I Allied Figures. Mike, where can people go to actually
Actually, the question is, where can I go this afternoon to download myself a copy?
So, look, Ian, there's literally a handful of copies left, and my understanding is they're in the States. So if you went to the Amazon US site, you could pick up a hard copy of it.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's even better.
Okay. So grab that while it's, there's literally a handful there.
Oh.
So you could get a hard copy there, or the ebooks available. So you can get the, Kindle versions available off the Amazon site. You can get it directly from the publishers, Crowwood Press, and grab a copy from there. But just search Mike the Kiwi or Modelling.
Yep.
Modelling and Painting World War I Allied Figures.
Yep.
You had to look.
Searching Mike the Kiwi or Mike Butler. If you go to my Patreon site, you've got endless number of reviews there. I've just been truly humbled by the amount of reviews that have come through. There's some particular call-outs, but from around the globe, you can have a read of those go through.
Oh, well deserved though, mate. You're just looking at what I can see. It's just it's mind blowing.
Yeah, I do get the impression that your Patreon is the center of where your online presence, right?
Yeah, spot on, mate. So the intention of the Patreon originally was to build on the book. So what I wanted to be able to do is to give you a little bit more coverage behind the book. The book essentially stops around 2022. So any projects I've done since then, I've started to build those into a catalogue of my portfolio. But also, I'm learning about how to be a better coach, a better teacher, a better mentor in this. So I'm looking at how I can share in that process, and I use Patreon to do that. I've got portfolios across Pinterest and Facebook and also in Planet Figure, where I've shared a lot of stuff in the past. But I'm finding Patreon's a useful vehicle to share lots of free content. So a lot of the stuff on there is free. I'm looking at sharing. I've shared some stuff from Calvin Tan that I got when I was at Malcolm, sharing my own demos and stuff. So I'm using that as a platform to share broadly. But then, under the covers, if you want to learn a little bit more, just invest a smaller amount and we can explore more deeply about what's going on.
And as sensational as this book is, are you looking at doing a follow-up or a second book on something?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still vexed about books. I've been really impressed by Andy Langridge's process that he's been doing with his masterclass book that he's been doing, an ebook that specifically is around World War II figures, and particularly aimed at modelers that are, 35th scale modelers, I suppose, as part of that process. And I think a lot of that's coming through from his own writing abilities, but also leveraging off tools like ChatGPT and the like. And I think, the catch with books is they cost a fortune to produce. If you're doing a niche like that, you need to have a decent market. So I'm in two minds. I've written a lot of magazine articles in the past. I've been published a lot in Mr. Black Publications, which are a figure modelling book. So there's a lot of other articles there. So there's no shortage of forums to get stuff out. But my tendency at the moment is to respond to what people are asking for. And I can do a lot of that. I feel like I can do a lot of that virtually, but I'm also looking at how I do collaborations. So, the one I talked about with Young, or ones I've done with Andy Belsey. And I also do a lot of commissions. So the connection in with commissions into like Copper State Models, I did a lot of their earlier figures, the box art for that sort of thing. So I'm looking at how I leverage those to share things, but also push my own learning, so then I can help share with others.
Yeah.
And Patreon also is a useful means to build that sort of coaching network too, which is another part of what I'd like to be able to do a bit more of.
Besides your book, where else can people go to find out more information about you, Mike?
Well, like I said, Planet Figure on there. Search Mike the Kiwi. I've got a V bench there going back, 15 odd years with different projects. Shared a lot of stuff on there. I did have that Med-Rom forum. If you're interested in medieval and Roman, you can dig that out. That's in an old technology called Delphi Forums. Got me Facebook. I'm on there every day and popping things up from time to time as part of that process as well. And I'm more than happy for people to reach out. I've got my email address fairly liberally spread around the web, so you can drop me a message or a note, and I'll respond to that. So I'd like to think I'm available for those that are interested in learning a little bit more, but also available to help out where I can.
Fantastic.
Sure. Well, we'd like to see you in Australia at some point. There's a couple of good shows that you could.
Will you fit right in the Canberra show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should actually. I've been to QMHE once, and for me that was I should do some acknowledgement for a couple of the guys there. Al Mackey, who's a painter, particularly of the big Naked Army 1/6 scale figures.
Yeah.
One of my signature pieces is a Murray Sargent Honey, which is a 300mm foot tall figure, and that was gifted to me. The original was a conversion that Al Mackey did, and I spent 8 months painting that up into that Sargent. So that sort of stands out. But also Phil Walden, who's an expat Kiwi up there, who certainly was the master sculptor and master painter and artisan of World War One figures and Anzacs in general. So QMHA, definitely. I'm desperately trying to get to ACT.
Oh, yes.
Want to get to the museum there sometime.
Well, they've just finished the renovations there, so
Yeah, we're going this year, Dave.
We are.
We keep running into dual events. I was sort of hoping I might be able to get over there this year. I missed last year. Looks like I might miss this year. Might make it next year. We'll have to wait and see. But those two were ones I was going to, and I stay in touch with all the others that are happening around with you guys. So that's powerful.
That's awesome.
And I did get to SMC, which was phenomenal, mate.
Oh, wow.
And I highly recommend if you ever get a chance to get to SMC, that's a go-to place too.
It's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I think it's all.
You won't know yourself, Dave. You'll need more than a day or two there, mate.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you
Yes.
on the show. It's been a fantastic conversation. It's gone on for nearly an hour and a half now, so no end of sort of
One of our
chatting.
longer interviews.
Indeed, one of our longer interviews. Mate, thanks very much, and we certainly hope to see you soon.
Yeah, definitely, mate.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate the time. Take
No
care.
worries. Catch you later.
Done.
Well, that was certainly a fantastic interview
Oh,
with
yeah.
Mike the Kiwi.
What talent.
I
What
know.
absolute talent. Like, just looking at some of his photos, like the bruising around the eye of the French soldier that's got the patch and things you just wouldn't think of. The way he gets, like, weather-beaten faces and so forth, just next level.
And the detail he gets into the uniforms as well, it quite impressed me.
He paints them in a way that actually look like that material.
Yeah.
Not just like a colour thrown over something.
No, that's right.
I have a lot to learn. I do.
We do.
I
We
do.
both
I look at that. Like, look, I never thought myself to be a shabby painter, but when you look at stuff like that, it's like, I've got so much to learn.
Oh, I'm an awful painter. If I haven't got an airbrush, I'm hopeless.
So he's laughing so much because I said him this this video the other night. I said, "This is Dave because he refuses to use a brush paint, like a paintbrush." And it was it's from that I think it's Fatboy Slim.
Yeah.
Push the tempo.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the part where the music starts making people like move their hands about by them, like they can't not in control of their own hands.
Well, I can't have that on the show because it's got some music on there. But
Yeah. Yeah, so and like they sort of like they've lost control of their own arms, and there's this one guy who's like painting like these figure type things,
Yeah.
and he just starts smashing them all and like wiping them off the table with his arm, uncontrollable.
Yep,
Actually,
that's Dave
I'm
with a
not
paintbrush.
too bad with paintbrushes on, like doing bits of detail, like some lines and
Instrument panels.
instrument panels, and that type of stuff. So that's about as far as it goes.
Look, I'm not great. I mean, I've won with my figures, and I'm not sure how.
I'm not sure
But-
how either.
I mean,
Amy did a good job.
like I do think it came out okay, but I actually sidestepped a lot of the really sort of the finer points of figure painting. Like I was mostly working with dry brushing and washes and things like that, and like all the sort of things were like shading and wet blending and all that sort of stuff.
So I think what we've got to learn is to actually give these figures character.
But
Yeah.
here's the problem.
They need character.
I remember at the Malcolm show, they had a guy from AK there, and he was painting a figure that had like antlers on it.
Right.
And so you think antler colours, bone colour, maybe some tans or, some... He reaches for a grain of purple.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, what the heck? And he's doing it up on stage and everything. I'm going, there's no way these colours are going to work. And sure enough, it looks awesome. And then once he finished it and dried off, he handed it around to the crowd to have a look at. And I'm just sitting there in the crowd. I'm just gobsmacked. This guy used purple and grey for a...
Well, do you remember that that period in time where people were like arguing on the internet about that image of a dress, and they couldn't argue.
Yes.
Some people were saying it was orange, and some people were saying it was purple.
Or whatever, yeah.
I mean, comes down to the thing. Like, have you ever? I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you've ever worked with like photo editing software, you've got like the paint dropper tool where you can click on anything that you're looking at, and it will tell you the color of that
pick
pixel.
that color.
Yes.
Right, and you often find that the colors that you're looking at are not actually
the colors that you think
the way it seems
perceived.
Yeah, is what I'm getting at. So I mean, so there's a lot you can do with, say, a purple with regards to shading and things like that. Because purple is a really weird color. You know, it's the only color that is actually fictional, as far as I think that's the way it works. So it's basically we can't process, our brains can't process the color or whatever, and it essentially makes up the color purple.
I saw something about that. I think one of the only creatures that can see purple properly are wasps.
What?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, purple's a bit of an enigma colour.
Well, we got purple on the soundproof panels around here, and they look purple to me. I can see
it's what our brains perceive it to be.
Well, it's. I mean, that's why I'm never going to be a good figure modeler or painter, I should say, because I can't understand.
You'd be doing military stuff anyway, not fantasy stuff. So you'd be doing various shades of greys and browns and green and.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is I haven't got it in my mental capacity to reach in and go, oh, you know what? Pink and cyan would be the perfect color to put on.
That's fairly high level stuff, but you haven't even mastered being able to lay down a nice smooth coat of paint with a brush.
Cruelty comes so easy to your kind, doesn't it?
Well, to be honest, it's an acquired skill. Like, everything's an acquired skill, and being able to know how much you thin your paints down is
I'm at the
pretty
point now,
foundational.
I can use a paintbrush and not leave paint strokes.
I think that, you know, if you think that you've got detail painting with a brush in cockpits down pat, like you're confident in it, you really haven't learnt anything.
No, I'm not confident.
That is technical painting.
I'm not confident.
That's not artistic painting.
Because you don't, you can be under thinning or over thinning by quite a lot, and it won't make any difference to what you're doing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Damn dog's scratching at the door, which means it's probably time for us to finish up the show.
Yep.
So.
All right. A good show. I've enjoyed it.
All right, guys. It's been a great discussion. Thanks very much for being with us. And I will see you. I'm not sure whether I'm going to be back in time to record the next one or not back from the US, but anyway, we'll see how it goes.
We record next.
It'll be what it'll be. It'll be what it'll be.
Yep.
All right, lads. See you later.
Bye.